Okay guys, so I'm here to talk to you about Vikings. I finally watched it, all 6 seasons of the Vikings. So yeah, it took me a little bit of while because I originally had this on one of my watch lists from a while ago. I'll link that down below if you want to see it, but it's been a while since I picked it. But finally I've been able to get through all 6 seasons, and here is what I thought. Okay, so the Vikings is actually based off of, it follows Ragnar Lothbrok, and that was actually a real Viking back in the day, and it kind of follows, or it's loosely based on his story and his journey, but definitely goes into more detail, has like creative freedom, if you would like to say. So Ragnar Lothbrok started off as a farmer, and his wife was Lagertha, and their 2 kids. So he was just a simple farmer, there's nothing really that stood out too much about him, but he had this idea that he wanted to travel west. So every year the Vikings, they go and they raid, and usually it's within Norway or somewhere closer to them, and Ragnar decides he wants to go west and discover new land and see what's out there. The Vikings have never done that before. They have never gone west, and the Earl at the time is very apprehensive. He has conflicting feelings about this. He does not want to go west, but eventually he says, okay, Ragnar, you can go. Take some ships, go west. And so the Earl and the King make an alliance with Ragnar and send some people to go west and see what's out there. And when they're sailing west, they find England, and that's the first place they end up. And so they decide to raid England. England has never seen the Vikings before, so they are definitely not prepared. I believe the first place they raid is a monastery where there's a bunch of monks there. The monks don't know how to defend themselves. They never had to. So the Vikings, they go in there and steal all the money, food, and honestly do whatever they want as they're raiding the village. And while they're there, Ragnar sees a monk, and for some reason he decides to spare this monk's life and take him back with him to Kattegat. This monk, we find out his name is Athelstan, and he is a big part of this whole story within the Vikings. So the Vikings come back to Kattegat and show the king and the earl how much they got, and that is very prosperous over in England, and that would be a great place to raid again in the future. So let's talk about Athelstan a little bit. So he's a monk. He doesn't really know anything about the Vikings' ways. He is taken kind of like a slave to Kattegat, and he lives with Ragnar and his family, and he like works for them and whatever. So Athelstan is still trying to keep his religious beliefs because he is a Christian monk. In this place where they don't believe in that at all, they have like gods like Odin, and they believe in things like that, and Freya, and Athelstan doesn't believe in that. But eventually over time, he kind of starts to lose his Christianity and adapts the way of the Vikings. So he's no longer a monk, and he begins to fight with them and help them raid, and eventually kind of becomes a Viking. So that's Athelstan. It's very important to Ragnar. He sees him like as a confidant, as a friend, and someone that he truly trusts. So Athelstan and Ragnar have a really good relationship. How it starts off is not great, but Ragnar saw something in him, and that made him want to keep him alive, and Athelstan kind of became friends, and they had a great bond with each other. Let's go back to when they came back from the kingdom, came back from England, and they brought all this stuff, all the gold. The Earl and King kind of take the gold and have it for themselves, and they kind of break the alliance they had with Ragnar. They start to go after him, and Ragnar was not having that, so he ends up killing the Earl. So then Ragnar becomes Earl, and then the King ends up trying to come after him, and so Ragnar ends up killing the king, and then Ragnar becomes king. So yeah, what did we learn? Don't mess with Ragnar. And there's like a part within the series, he was like, I never wanted to be Earl, I never wanted to be king, but those things were kind of thrust upon me. And I was like, interesting, because I never thought about that. Like, a lot of people are very ambitious, but that's not really what he wanted in the beginning. He just wanted to sail west, see what else is out there, like travel, and like see what other countries and people are out there. That's what he really wanted when he started. And then the Earl threatened him, and so he had to kill him, and then the king came after him, and they had to kill him, and that's how he became king, because he killed the king. So Ragnar is a very powerful man now. He raids England, he's king, he was like the first to do this, and so his name is very well known. He's become very powerful and famous, and a lot of women like him as well. He meets this woman that intrigues him, and he decides that he wants to make her his wife as well. So he already married to Lagertha, and now he's like, I'm going to make this other woman my wife, so I have 2 wives. Well, Lagertha's like, no, that's not what I want. She feels betrayed, she loved Ragnar, and now he wants another woman. So she doesn't really fight him on it. She's like, okay, you can have your second wife, but I won't be here. So she leaves him. Their son decides to follow his mom, Lagertha, and goes with him. So Ragnar lost his wife and his son, and now he's king of Kattegat with only his second wife. Lagertha, Ragnar's first wife, she's one of my favorite characters out of the series. She's definitely a strong female character that the show has. Love her, and she kind of creates her own name for herself. So Lagertha ends up marrying another earl, and he didn't really treat her great, and eventually she becomes the earl. I'm like, yay, Lagertha. So she becomes an earl, so she has this power, she has people, and I'm like, good for her. She deserved it. Everything she's been through, she deserves to be earl. So Lagertha and Ragnar, they do cross paths again. He calls on certain earls and ends up finding that she is an earl, and she is willing to help him on his next adventure. So that's really nice. I liked how they could still be cordial and nice to each other even after kind of what they've been through. And so I think it was really cool. They kind of still stay friends. You can see that they still love each other. They're there for each other. So the next place that Ragnar wants to raid after he raids England is Paris. And this is where we kind of see, I'm going to talk more about his relationship with his brother Rollo. Rollo is Ragnar's brother, and he's kind of been in Ragnar's shadow. Ragnar has had all these ideas. He wanted to sail west. He accomplished it. He became Earl. Now he's king, and Rollo's kind of just the king's brother. Rollo wants to find his own destiny. He doesn't want to just be Ragnar's brother and just be his kind of like lapdog, I would say, or just do whatever he wants. He does love his brother, but he wants his own path. And that's something he kind of struggles with in this series, because there is one point before they go to Paris that Rollo kind of betrays his brother and decides to go against him. And then when they got to fight, Rollo's like, I can't do this. I can't fight my brother, and decides to go back with Ragnar. So he has this like inner turmoil. He's like, to do something and not always be by my brother's side and not just do what he tells me to do. But I love my brother, and if he tells me to go with him to invade Spain or raid Paris, he will do it. So that's something we kind of see him struggle with. So now Ragnar, he has raided England. Now he wants to go somewhere else, and that is Paris. So he decides to take a bunch of ships and everything, go to Paris. Now that he has been more well known, a lot more people want to join him on his raid that didn't get a chance to go to England. So here we meet King Harold and his brother, and they kind of join Ragnar on his raid to Paris. So they're not quite sure what to expect, but they bring a lot of ships and they're ready to attack Paris. And after they did attack England, Europe knows of the Vikings, and everyone kind of knows maybe they'll come back, maybe they'll attack them next. So I feel like Paris knew of the Vikings and tried to enforce or strengthen their army just in case something would happen. And it just did. So Vikings are coming to Paris and like, yeah, we're gonna get them, we're gonna fight Paris. Well, Paris was not as easy as England. Paris was like more ready for them, and they've had an army and they are fighting the Vikings, and it is a tough battle for them. So they get to Paris. The Vikings are doing everything they can to fight them. There's like a wall, and they're trying to get over this wall for Paris, and it's really, really hard. They are like getting destroyed and killed every inch of the way. Anything they try, Paris is there to counteract their attack. And Paris is struggling too. The Vikings are stronger than they thought, but they are still holding their all as well. The Vikings end up using a surprise tactic and are able to defeat Paris and end up raiding them and leaving. Well, all but some set of Vikings. Ragnar asks Rollo to stay in Paris with some Vikings so that when they come back, they'll already have some Vikings on land, and that'll help them better next time to raid Paris in the future. So Rollo decides to stay in Paris with some Vikings and be ready for Ragnar when he returns. Well, when the rest of the Vikings leave, the king of France decides to make a deal with Rollo. He offers him money and gold, he offers him the title, and he also offers him his daughter's hand in marriage. But to receive all that, he has to help them defeat the Vikings when they return. So for me, I was watching this because I believe this was the end of like the second or third season. And I was like, okay, Rollo's not going to do it. He's not going to go against brother. Because time and time again, we saw that every time he went against his brother, he couldn't do it. He was just like, nah, I can't do this. But no, guys, he took the deal. I was shocked. I was like, Rollo, are you serious? And I'm like, okay, maybe this is not what I think. No, it was exactly what I think. He took the deal and he decided to go with France against the Vikings. So in Paris, we get to see Rollo's relationship with the princess. So the princess name is Gisela, and she does not like Rollo or the Vikings at all. Upset that her father made this deal in the first place, she does not want to marry him, but she has to go through with it, and she is not happy about it. So her and Rollo do not get the best start on their relationship. She wants to find a way to annul the marriage because she doesn't want to be with him. And Rollo is actually trying his best to please her and to become more like a Christian and more like the French people and to turn away his Viking ways. So he is putting a lot of effort. He's trying to learn their language, learn their religion, and be more proper and less like a Viking. And at first she doesn't take him seriously or she's laughing it off, but eventually she sees the effort he's putting into it and they form a bond, and then they fall in love. So I really like that dynamic. I kind of wish they explored their relationship a bit more, but that's just me. Anyway, Rollo is in France with his wife who loves him, and he kind of is established there. And then the Vikings decide to come back and raid Paris. Ragnar doesn't really... I believe Ragnar knows that his brother betrayed them because a messenger came back and told him that Rollo killed the Vikings that were there. Because with the king's deal, Rollo killed all the other Vikings that were in Paris in that settlement, and Rollo came back to help him. So Rollo killed his own people to make a deal with this king. So that was a form of betrayal. So Ragnar is ready to go fight Paris and face his brother, and Rollo has prepared on his end on what the Vikings might do, and all of France is behind him, and so they decide to fight. So I'm not sure who I want to win when I'm watching this battle, but I just know, this hurts. Brother against brother, betrayal, it's a lot. So the Vikings come and they're ready to go get Paris, but Rollo is prepared. He is a great fighter. He's always been a great fighter, and we all know that. So Rollo is attacking them from everywhere, and they do have the advantage because they're in Paris, in France, in their land, and the Vikings only have the water and they don't really have the advantage. They don't really know the land that well, and they've only been there once. Ragnar gets defeated by his brother, and that's kind of the last time they fight off. Ragnar is really upset and distraught that his brother would go against him. It seems like Rollo, he's like proud of himself for defeating them, but that's his brother, man. Like, this is it. Rollo goes back to his life in Paris, and Ragnar goes back to Norway, to Kattegat with his people. But after that battle, it kind of really destroyed him. After that, Ragnar kind of disappears, and this is where we begin to meet the sons of Ragnar, Lothbrok. Ragnar has a total of 5 sons. He has one with Lagertha, which is Bjorn, and then he has 4 others with his second wife. And all the sons, they have a good bond. They are not hateful towards each other. Well, not really, but they have a good bond towards each other. They're there for each other because they don't have their father. It's just the 5 of them. So now they're all grown up. They're all adults. And they did that without their father. And Bjorn, since he's the oldest, he kind of has looked after them. But they all kind of been taking care of each other. So one day, Ragnar decides to come back. After abandoning all of them. After abandoning Kattegat, after abandoning his sons, he decides to come back. So he comes back and he's not fully welcomed with open arms. His sons are kind of like salty towards him because he did just abandon them. But he asked them, he's like, hey, will anyone come with me to England? And a lot of people do not want to go. He asks his sons, and they say no, except for his youngest. So his youngest is Ivar the Boneless. And the reason he's called the Boneless is because he is a cripple. He cannot walk. So he asks his son, Ivar, if he will go with him, and Ivar says, yes, I will go with you. So he has his son, and then he has one boat, I think 1 or 2 boats of people, but they're not the strongest soldiers. They're kind of like the leftovers. A lot of people did not want to go with Ragnar because he left. He kind of abandoned the people, and no one really wants to go with him anymore. So he just takes 2 boats to England, and while they are in England, Ragnar and Ivar kind of walk into England where they were previously, and they kind of capture Ragnar. They don't do anything with Ivar too much. They don't see him as a threat because he is a cripple, so they don't really see him as a threat, don't really do anything with him. But with Ragnar, they kill him in England. So Ivar, they let him go. They sail him back to Kattegat, and Ragnar is killed in England because of everything he had done. He was the first person to lead the Vikings over there, and he had done so much to raided so much in England, and when they finally captured him and killed him, the people of England were so happy. But they should have suspected that his sons would come after them. So Ivar comes back. He tells his brothers, this is what happened. The people in England, they killed Ragnar, our father. We need to go avenge him. So that's what they do. All the brothers come together. They go sail to England with a bunch of ships, a bunch of people, and go avenge their father. They kill the kings that killed him. The brothers are kind of going their separate ways. Some of the brothers believe they should all stick together. That's what Ragnar would want. Some of them have their own journeys they want to do. One of them wants to raid, some of them want to stay in England, some of them want to go back to Kattegat. So they're kind of splitting up. And there's one brother that Ivar did not get along with. He always taunted him. And then he pushes Ivar to the edge, and Ivar takes an axe and throws it at him and kills his brother. And I'm like, dude, he literally kills his brother in front of all these people. Everyone's like, wow, he can't believe he did that. But they don't really punish him or do anything about it. Let's go back to Lagertha. Lagertha, we see she became Earl. She's kind of like running her own thing, but she wants Kattegat back. And who's currently at Kattegat? Ragnar's second wife. And this woman's not a fighter. So Lagertha goes to Kattegat with her army, which is like a group of women, yay, or shield maidens, I should say. And they go to take Kattegat back. So they're pretty much defeated, the people in Kattegat. And the second wife is like, okay, let me just go. I won't fight against you. Just let me leave. And so she's walking away, and Lagertha's like, nah, and killed her. Lagertha killed Ragnar's son's mother, and they want to avenge their mother's death, but Lagertha is Bjorn's mother, who's also their brother. So they're kind of between a rock and a hard place. And because of this, there is tension between the brothers now, and that leads to a war against Kattegat. So on one side, we have Bjorn, Lagertha, Ube are all fighting, and then on the other side we see Ivar, Hidsvert, and King Harald. So we have two sides, and they're all fighting against each other for the ruling of Kattegat. And so they go to war. And Ivar is very, very smart. He's very strategic. And I think that because he couldn't walk and couldn't learn how... He does know how to fight pretty well. Like, he has good aim. He can use a sword. But I think because he can't fight like everyone else, he also had to use other ways to his advantage or other ways to win. And I think that comes with his mind games and his strategic ways of fighting, and he really uses that to his advantage, and things that other Vikings haven't had to think of he uses, and he's able to defeat people. So he finds out strategic ways to defeat his brothers in Lagertha, and so he rules Kattegat, and then Bjorn, Lagertha, and Ube, they need to escape. So they decide to escape, and the only place that they can go is England. So they decided to go to England and see if England will help them. And with some persuading, England lets them stay there and doesn't hurt them. And in return, England asks that some of them become Christians. So they had to renounce their Viking religion and become Christians. After they get Kattegat, we see Ivar as a ruler. He becomes king of Kattegat, and he is ruthless. He's like a dictator in this town, and a lot of people don't like him ruling. They're like, this is not how Ragnar used to rule. And Ivar gets this idea in his head that he's a god, and he's like, I'm not just Viking, I'm more powerful than that. And he wants people to make altars and statues to him. And the people of Kattegat are like, oh my goodness, this dude is crazy. And anyone that speaks any type of bad about him, they're like burned or killed or anything like that. It's very, very like a dictatorship and that type of ruler. And no one is really safe. And so we get to see how the type of ruler Ivar is and how crazy he is. Because you kind of see bits and pieces throughout the series in the past couple of seasons, but really when he becomes king and rules, you get to see what he's like with power, and it is scary. So we see Ivar in power and being king. So eventually we see the Vikings in England. They decide that it's time for them to go back to Kattegat. So they go back, and Team Harald is willing to help them this time. So they go back to fight Ivar, and Ivar is still strategic, very smart. They have someone on the inside that helps them get to Kattegat to overthrow Ivar, and then they go to find Ivar, and he's gone. So Ivar was able to escape. So unfortunately they weren't able to kill him, but now Bjorn is king of Kattegat, which is what we all wanted. We all wanted Bjorn to be king. Finally, Bjorn's king, and everyone's happy, and he kind of figures out what kind of ruler he is going to be. So he's with the people of Kattegat and trying to reassure them and be the king that they want and need. While he is ruling, he gets a message from King Harald, and he's in danger. He's kind of captured by another king of Norway. So Bjorn decides to help him. So he goes over there, and the king that has him, he's like, we need to elect a king of all Norway, not all these little kings, someone to unite us all. And they decide that should be Bjorn. So they invite all the kings and earls of Norway to elect the king. Everyone expects it to be Bjorn because that's what they had discussed. But King Harald, on the other hand, this has been his dream to be king of Norway. Like, ever since we see him come in, he's been like, my dream is to be king of Norway. And so he's not letting Bjorn get this dream. He talks to other rulers secretly and promises them things. And so they vote for him, and Harald becomes the king of all Norway, and Bjorn realizes that he betrayed him. So Bjorn goes back to Kattegat, expecting Harald to come after him because King Harald already tried to kill him. So he's like, King Harald's gonna come after me. While that's all happening, there is another danger for Norway, and it is Ivar. So Ivar, when he escaped, he met the Rus king, and this king's like, okay, let's go take over Kattegat. And so this is Ivar's like new army with the help of the king over there. So Ivar with the Rus, they go to Kattegat and actually Norway just to rule it all. And they have a huge army. And so they come there, and the Vikings are really struggling to defeat them. And Ivar, when they're fighting, stabs Bjorn, and Bjorn is taken away, and on his last breath, he's really struggling to stay alive, and he doesn't think he's gonna make it. So the next day of battle, Bjorn decides to take one more ride out into the middle of the field, and he's on his horse, and with all his strength, he lifts his sword, and that just inspires all the Vikings, and they go after the Rus, and the Rus are terrified because they're like, Bjorn should be dead. We heard he was dead, and it's like a man came back to life, so they're freaking out, so they just run away. So they're running away, and the Vikings are coming after them. They're fully defeated, and Norway and Kattegat is fine and safe. But now Kattegat does not have a king. And then King Harald comes along, strolling in. He's like, the crown belongs to me. I'm king of all Norway, so I should get this crown. King Harald becomes king of Norway. And he's like, and I also want to marry both of Bjorn's brides. And I'm like, dude, why are you so obsessed with Bjorn? Like, I feel like he just wants what Bjorn has. So he wants to marry both of Bjorn's wives. He marries one, but the other one's like, I want to be with Bjorn in Valhalla. So she decides to not marry him and kind of swim in ice cold water until she dies so she can be in Valhalla with Bjorn. So I was like, ooh, this girl does not want to marry you at all. And so now King Harald's like king of all Norway and king of Kattegat, and he has Bjorn's other wife. Ivar and his brother Hitsvert want to go back to Kattegat. So they go back, and people don't welcome them with open arms because of everything they have done. But King Harald's like, no, it's fine, let them come back. And when they're back, Ivar suggests that they go raid England again. And this is kind of near the end of the final season, so it kind of comes full circle. They started with England, now they're going to end in England. So Ivar, King Harald, his brother Hitsvert all go to England. They go to England to raid it and defeat the new king there. So this is kind of where everything's wrapping up in this season, and like, how are things gonna end? So during this battle, we lose King Harald, and I was like, thank goodness. I was tired of King Harald, let's be honest. He was I didn't like him. And then we also lose Ivar in this battle as well. And Ivar, like, yes, I did not like Ivar, but I really think he was a good villain. I liked how smart he was. So we lose Harald and Ivar, and they kind of have like a burial for Ivar, and we see that Hitsvert stays in England even after Ivar's death, and he becomes a Christian. He is no longer a Viking. In the end, he looks like he's been there for a long time, becomes a Christian, and kind of lives in England for the rest of his life. Also, in the end, we see that since King Harald's gone, that his wife becomes queen of Kattegat. And that's how it ends. Bjorn is gone, Lothbrok is gone, Ivar is gone, and Hitsvert kind of finds his own journey and stays in England. So yeah, this was a 6-season show. I didn't want to go into too much detail because that would be way too much, but kind of just going through the journey of Ragnar and then his sons. So yeah, for the first couple seasons, it focuses mostly on Ragnar. We see Ragnar Rollo and Ragnar's journey to fame and everything's done. But then after, we see the shift focus on Ragnar's sons and their journey and like how they became famous and what they're doing. So I kind of liked it. I liked the sons seasons a lot. I really liked following Bjorn and especially Ivar as well. I thought their journeys were really cool. I don't know about Ube's journey. It was weird. I feel like he was just there. So I'm like, okay. There's definitely a lot of characters I did not mention, but I kind of just focused on the main storyline as much as I could and not go into too much detail. So I have seen a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've seen people talking about this show, and I was interested. I'm like, it seemed kind of good. I don't know. I did like the show overall. I thought it was good, but it was just the pacing for me. I thought was so slow, and it kind of dragged, and I feel like that's why it took me so long. I'm like, why is it taking me so long to watch this? I feel like I should be into this more. It was slow to start, and then it got good, and then in between it was slow. And I was like, why is it taking so long to get to the good parts? It was just, I don't know, the pacing for me was just very slow, and I got tired and found it hard to keep watching to finish the show. That was one thing that was really big for me that I did not like. What else I didn't like was like relationships, like especially like romantic relationships. There was not a lot of effort put into developing them. There were definitely some that were really good. I feel like Ragnar and Lagatha, their relationship, like the development of that relationship was good, and the journey. I thought the relationship with Rollo and Gisela was okay too. I wish there was a little bit more. Even the woman before, I forget her name, that Rollo had before he met his wife, Gisela, I thought that relationship was good as well. Like the development, like not all the relationships were like great relationships, but I think the development and the effort put into towards those were good. And then I felt they just threw relationships together, and I'm like, where did this woman even come from? There was like one relationship with Hitzberg, and he had like his second girl that he loved, I guess, and I was like, did they even introduce her character? Like, where did she even come from? When Bjorn married the one girl who already had the kid, I was like, why does he want to marry her? Because she was already married, and he was like, your husband doesn't treat you well, come with me. And then Bjorn ends up, he's not mean to her, but he ends up like, oh, I'm not in love with you anymore. And I'm like, why did you marry her? I felt like there was no chemistry. I think that's what it was a lot of time. They just threw people together and there was no chemistry. Like, why are these people even together? Why are they married? I just didn't get it. I also wish we got to see more of Rollo with Gisela. I really liked that storyline in France. I don't know, I wish that was more of that, because we just see him fight his brother, and then I think that's about it. We see Rollo come back in a later season, but there's not too much after that. So I kind of wish we explored that relationship and him in France more, and I don't know, that journey for him. I would have liked to see more of that. I really like the fight scenes. I think those were my favorite parts of the entire series, of when the battles came up and it was like, ooh, which brother's gonna win? Ooh, which team's gonna win? I think those were really, really nice. I really enjoyed it, but it was like so slow in between coming up to those points, like dragged so much. Fight scenes were really, really good. I liked the show. I thought it was a good show. Not 100% what I was expecting. There were definitely a lot of parts I liked. I liked him with Athelstan, seeing that journey. I liked Lagatha. I liked seeing the sons grow up and their journeys and where they take, and they're all trying to like fulfill their father's legacy or keep it alive, and they all kind of do that in different ways, and like what would their father want them to do. So I enjoy seeing that. I guess if I had to rate this show, I would give it a 3.5. Like, it was a good show and I liked it, and I think it is better than most, but I don't know, I thought it was okay. Like, it was a good show. I just wish it was better. And it was really, if the pacing was just so much, if it wasn't so slow to get into or get through things, I think I would have rated really high, but it was just slow. But yeah, that's what I thought of Vikings. It's a good show. If you like, shows like that, maybe check it out. So if you have seen the Vikings, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you finish all 6 seasons? Yeah, what were your thoughts? I really liked the later seasons. Like, I did enjoy Ragnar, but I really liked seeing the sons and their journey. I really liked those seasons, and I wish there were more of them, because I thought those were really entertaining. But yeah, on my website, I did a review of each season, so I'll link those below. And as always, I'll link my website if you want more TV content as well. You can definitely follow me on all my socials. I'll leave those linked below. If you want to be known every time I upload a new video, definitely hit that subscribe button, and then you can see every time I upload a review or any type of other TV content video. I do plan on doing, I think, 1 or a couple more reviews coming up that I have set, so keep an eye out for those. And I think that's it. Thanks, guys, again for watching. I truly do appreciate it. Hope you have a good day, good rest of your month, a good rest of your year, and until next time, bye.